Okay, this is part 2 of Pitschak versus Flohr, played in 1934. And I was just discussing what happens if white plays d4, I'm sorry. And I had just covered, we're covering some variations. I just covered, I just discussed if the knight takes the pawn, which leads to ruined pawn structure. So, what happens? White could take the pawn, but then black would just take on e3, and then, the f takes e3, the pawn takes the knight, and we sort of have also a ruined pawn structure. Or potentially, white could push the pawn, and if white pushed the pawn, black would probably play the knight over to a5, and then the bishop could always come back to c1, and then probably black would play f5 or even f6, and this is probably maybe the best line for white, but it's sort of looking messed up for white. So let's go back to the game. So actually, white plays h3, and I wouldn't advise this move, even though it looks like white's putting the test to the bishop, saying take the knight or move away. But what it really does is white is sort of moving pawns around the king, weakening the king protection potentially. And black plays the bishop back, keeping the pressure on, so white cannot play d4. So white plays rook to c1, getting the rook to the c file, to the half open file. And now black plays queen to e7, developing developing the queen, and also threatening to win a pawn. And also, now black's rooks are free to move to whatever file they want to support an attack on white. And now white plays knight to a4, with the idea of playing the knight to c5, where it can harass on the queen side. If you don't know, white's basic plan is to attack on the queen side, and black's basic plan is now to attack on the king side. So this move here would help white's plan of moving the knight in, harassing and attacking on the queen side. But black can win a pawn, and it does so by taking the knight. The bishop retakes, and now the queen takes on h3. Maybe I forgot to say at the beginning of this video, or the beginning of the game, I like to come up with a theme of the game, and the theme of the game is actually don't get rid of your best defender. This is exactly what white does, so I could have really almost skipped forward right to this point in the game, because this is the critical mistake by white. White decides to try to recapture the material at the expense of getting rid of this bishop right here, which is the best defender of his. Look, the queen has invaded the area, and the only real defender to this area is this bishop. But white decides to get rid of it to get the pawn back. So white takes the knight, and now black has to recapture, and then white gets the pawn back. But now white's left without that bishop. So I don't understand that. I would have gone down a pawn and probably dropped at this point I would have probably dropped the bishop back, attacking the queen, getting rid of the queen, then think about winning the pawn back somehow. But white gets its pawn back, and now black plays knight to d5. This is the beginning. Well, actually, when white got rid of its bishop, that was the beginning of the end. Now it's really threatening havoc, because now the threat is for black. Let's say white made some some random move like a3. Nothing that does anything to position. Now black could actually play knight takes e3, and then pawn takes, and then queen takes pawn, check, king moves, queen, check, king moves back, and then this bishop comes in, and it's really over. So that's one way that black can win. Another one after this move a3 is that black could always play the knight to f6, where it plans on bringing it here and then delivering checkmate right here. So that's the devastating thing about this knight to d5. So now white plays queen e1 with the idea that if black does take the bishop when a recapture with this pawn, that black cannot recapture. So, and also another thing, but I'll get to that a little bit later. Meaning the variation is very similar. There is another variation here, but it's similar to a future variation. So now black plays f5 with the idea, well, maybe I should say if black now plays immediately back, white could just play the pawn up and it would prevent the knight from coming in. So f5 with the idea of pushing the pawn up, getting, sort of opening up the position, but also now that the rook could come over, let's say here, and then here. Actually, I'd have to move forward again. And now white plays bishop to c5 with the idea of trying to get rid of a few pieces. And also the threat of knight taking the bishop is gone, but just trying to liquidate. Sometimes your option of when you're playing is that one of the ways to get rid of the attack is to get rid of your opponent's pieces. Hopefully, though, getting rid of your opponent's pieces does not put you in a bad position. But here it looks like white wants to exchange a few pieces. And maybe I should just cover one quick variation of what happens if white just made some random move, again a3, that had no bearing on the position. Well, then black's plan is to play f4, and now practically if white plays g takes f4, and then black has this great move of rook takes f4 with the idea of once again sliding the rook over to h4, delivering checkmate. The bishop takes, and now the knight takes, and now mate's going to come on g2. So once again we back up, and white has played bishop to c5. Black now plays f4 just as planned to get the clears away for the rook, also attacking the pawn here on g3. The bishop takes. White is hoping that black retakes with the knight, hoping to get rid of some of the attackers, because now the knight will not be in the area of attacking the king, and white can probably regroup and survive. But no, black just now retakes, threatening mate on h2. F takes g3 is forced, and now the knight comes in, and there's no way for white to prevent mate. I mean, if a couple things. I mean, we could always have rook takes, check, and then this rook takes back. And obviously, white has to look at the mate here on here. So the only way to prevent that would be, like bringing the queen up to f2, but it would just lose it. And if so the possible moves are, I just covered, rook takes here, doesn't work. Another one could be rook up, but then the queen just takes the pawn, and the king comes over, and then it's just going to be mate in a few moves. So that one doesn't work either. So actually, there's no real way for white to get out of it, and it's going to get checkmated or lose a lot of material and end up losing. That's it, and white actually resigned in this position. So hopefully this has been a good lesson on don't get rid of your best defender, or maybe get the queen out of the area before getting rid of your best defender. So that one move really did it in for white.